Welcome back to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We've been focusing at this time in our show on the rebuilding delays and problems at Ground Zero in New York. Many 9/11 families say the process has been an insult and that the Freedom Tower plan, which is only a few feet off the ground right now, has been a mistake all along. These families and police and firefighter organizations continue to insist the Twin Towers be rebuilt stronger, taller, and safer. Joining us now is the former governor of New York, George Pataki. Was Governor Pataki oversaw the group responsible for the Ground Zero for several crucial years following 9/11. Let's start with the Twin Towers. The Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, they're responsible for the World Trade Center site. In July 2001, they said in a press release, quote, "The World Trade Center and its Twin Towers are among the handful of instantly recognizable structures on the entire planet, like the pyramids at Giza or the Great Wall of China." But last Friday, Christopher Ward, who now runs the Port Authority, said on the show, I was asking him about how we might replace the White House or Capitol building, and he said, "I think you're dealing with national monuments as opposed to real estate structures." Do you also believe that the Twin Towers were only real estate structures?
Of course not. And they didn't say it were real estate structures. Before they were destroyed, they say they were iconic symbols of New York and America, and they were.
Why did Christopher Ward then describe them as real estate structures on this very show last Friday?
Well, they're not. They were a part of the fabric of New York and a symbol of our city and country, and they're going to be in the process of being replaced by a magnificent tribute to the heroes of September 11th and to the freedom of our country. And, you know, you always have critics, and it's wonderful to have this critic or that critic, because generally those who want to see progress stay quiet. But I'll tell you, I'm extremely proud of what's happening in Lower Manhattan. I am extremely proud that the memorial will be the most visited place in North America, and it will be a tribute to everyone who died on September 11th and the heroes who lived.
How is it a tribute to people who said and who continue to believe the Twin Towers were a symbol of America's freedom, a symbol of capitalism? That's why they were attacked. So why not rebuild them to begin with as opposed to a building that a lot of people have never liked?
Well, I don't know about, they haven't seen the building. You know, it's wonderful to not like something you haven't seen, because when we took a look at that ground after September 11th, I knew, as most Americans I think feel, is that it was hallowed ground and that we had to do something significant. And the center of everything we had to do was the memorial. I mean, are we going to take the site?
But there's not a disagreement.
Are we going to take
the
site?
There's no disagreement.
But the memorial pays tribute to the towers by preserving the sites where the towers stood, and by having where those towers stood a void, a reflecting pool where a waterfall will draw down to the bottom, and the names of everyone who died will be around those. Now, there are a lot of people who said, forget about it, go build. You know, pretend it never happened. That would have been an insult to the people who died. That would have been an insult to the courage and the strength of those who responded. And I, from the beginning, knew that paying tribute and remembering those we lost had to be the cornerstone. Now, David.
Let's talk first about the Freedom Tower. We can circle back to that.
I get a little emotional about this.
As you should, but it is a very emotional issue for a lot of people.
It's so easy for someone to say you should do this or you should do that.
Right, but let's inform our viewers about the process that took place. 2002, there was this effort to essentially winnow down the 400 entries to 9. On September the 26th, the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, which you helped put together, narrowed down 407 rebuilding entries to 9, including one from architect Daniel Libeskind, who had never built an office tower before. Libeskind is very close with Ron Lauder, who gave heavily to your campaigns. And on September 26, 2002, the very same day, Ron Lauder's family gave $68,000 to friends of Pataki.
Can I
hold on a second. Hold on. $30,000 from Ron, $28,000 from Joe, $10,000 from Jane, the daughter. Why shouldn't the public be suspicious?
Let me tell you
about
the truth.
This?
Ronald Lauder called me and said, I prefer one of the final designs. And it wasn't the Libeskind design. It was the Vignoli design. And he said, I think you should do the Vignoli. Now, I don't know where you got all the things about how close they are, but I can tell you for a fact that Lauder called me for a different design. And the Libeskind site plan wasn't chosen by me. There were 10 million hits on the Internet when the final 5 architects laid out their plans and diagrams. There were tens of thousands of people who visited them in Lower Manhattan. 10 million hits on the Internet. And then, ultimately, the LMDC, which was jointly appointed by myself and the mayor, made the determination. I thought, and still think, the Libeskind plan was the best plan and is a brilliant plan.
But would you acknowledge that the Libeskind plan as it stands now doesn't look anything like what the LMDC chose back in 2003? Back in 2003, it only went up to 70 floors. There was a windmill and a wind turbine on top. There was an off-center antenna. Now it goes up to 100 floors.
David. You said Libeskind never built an office building. He's not building one now. They are being designed and built by individual architects. It is David Childs. It's David Childs, who is a brilliant architect, who has designed the Freedom Tower. And it always was intended in accordance with Libeskind's design to go to 1,776 feet high, with a spire at the top, but with limited offices stopping somewhere around the 80th floor. The concept was always that you have the memorial where the footprints of the towers were. You have a plaza surrounding that. And then you have a spire of rising office buildings culminating in a building 1,776 feet tall, not to recreate the towers, but to rise above the towers.
Why would you want a tower to, if you want to hold on to the memory of the Twin Towers and the icons that they were, why would you support to begin with a building design that would only be occupied to the 70th floor and then have, granted, it would go up to 1,776 feet with the tower and the windmill, but since when would we want a windows on the world at the 70th floor? You wouldn't even be able to see as tall as the Empire State Building.
Of course you could. You could see
from the 70th floor.
It's so easy to criticize. It will be a magnificent building. And by the way, your opening, it is under construction. It has reached street grade. The bidding and contracting for 80 to 90% of all the materials is out there. There is a commitment for 1 million square feet of occupancy from GSA and the state of New York, and it is going forward, as is the memorial.
But given, I mean, in 2003, your wife got double the consulting fees from Ron Lauder, $80,000. Why didn't you go with Ron Lauder's recommendation for the Vignoli design, which essentially had the scaffolding? If he wanted it, if the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation also said that they wanted it, why would you overrule everybody?
Because it was terrible, and I didn't overrule everybody. Let me tell you a little bit about the Vignoli design.
Let's just take that point right there about what happened with you and the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation. This is the New York Post, I believe. Right. The Lower Manhattan Development Corporation also seemed intent on choosing Mr. Vignoli, leader of the think team, to rebuild at Ground Zero, but met with a veto from Governor Pataki. You're not going to build these skeletons, Mr. Pataki told LMDC officials, according to New York architecture critic Paul Goldberger. So in other words, the team itself, the LMDC team, they didn't want Libeskind's design. The public didn't want the Libeskind design. According to a New York Times poll, they only had 1.7% that supported it. You were the only one that supported it, and I guess the question is why.
Wrong. That's complete nonsense. When we went to that meeting, I remember Mayor Bloomberg's comments very well. And they were looking at Vignoli. And Mayor Bloomberg said, I just paid $30 million to tear down fuel tanks in Astoria that looked just like it. They both occupied the sites where the towers had stood, where we thought it was critical to have a memorial. They didn't have offices. They had this bare skeletons rising up. And by the way, they couldn't have been compensated for by the insurance because they weren't occupied, and the insurance proceeds required that you rebuild the office space that had existed prior to September 11th.
The big question everybody wants to know, why not rebuild the Twin Towers? Why wasn't there a plan to rebuild the Twin Towers from the beginning?
Because we wanted to have the memorial and not the towers as the centerpiece.
But couldn't you do both?
No.
I mean, there's a plan right now that Ken Gardner has, that 9/11 family support. It has the memorial. It keeps the footprints, and it rebuilds the towers. I guess the question is, do you consider the memorial that you would walk underground, is that the iconic representation of what happened to us and the symbolism of America, or is it New York's skyline? And we can have an honest disagreement, but that's what it boils down to, doesn't it?
The whole idea of the Freedom Tower is to not just reclaim the skyline that was there on September 11th. And when you saw it, people would think, oh, my God, they got knocked down, they're back. We're going to see a building that rises higher than that soars to new heights, where you look at it and you're going to say, we're not cowards. We're not going to build small because we've been attacked before. We're going to soar to new heights. And it's going to be respectful of where those towers stood, which will be voids and reflecting pools as the centerpiece of the memorial. We're doing both. We are going to have the most moving memorial in America, and we are going to have a tribute to our freedom by rising to new heights.
Well, I have no doubt that the memorial is going to be spectacular, and you deserve credit for that. But again, I think the issue is when you're building a building that's not even going to be as occupied as high as either the Twin Towers, I think a lot of people have an issue with that. But in any case, Governor, good of you to join us. It's not an easy debate for anybody. We appreciate you coming in and showing some courage to be here.
Thank you very much.